All right, one last look at your traffic and weather for your ride in on this Thursday morning. A couple of different accidents to report. One at Fairfield Road near I-20, one at Garner's Ferry near I-77, and one at Windsor Lake Boulevard and Hunt Club Road. Today, high of 90 with a chance of an isolated storm later on this afternoon. Tomorrow, high of 85 and partly cloudy. That's your traffic and weather on the game. Nine o'clock on your Thursday morning. Welcome in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Veltri along with you here on the game. Jack, hard to believe the week's almost over, man. Well, I know we didn't, both of us only were working 3 days this week, but nice to know the weekend is almost here once again.
No, you're right, man. It is Thursday, and it feels like at this point the days are just kind of like lost at this point. Like I really, it does not feel like Thursday to me. I couldn't tell you what day it feels like, but it does. It feels more like the beginning of the week. But yeah, now that you say it's Thursday, I'm glad because we're getting closer to the end of the week here. But hope you're doing well, man.
Absolutely, doing pretty good. Hope you're doing pretty good yourself. I'm very excited because it's not just any Thursday. It is 100 days until kickoff Thursday here on 107.5 The Game, which means we're on the fast track to the college football season getting started. We'll dive in to the number 100 a little bit later on in the show, but each and every day, Jack, we're going to take that number and we're going to be very specific about something with Gamecock football all the way up until September 5th when South Carolina takes on Kent State, which we learned yesterday. We now know what time that and the other two games in weeks number 2 and 3 to start the season are going to be kicking off. And go ahead and start hydrating now and get your sunscreen ready because it's going to be a hot one for week number 1 against Kent State, kicking off at 12:45 that afternoon.
Yep, so early start for that game on SEC Network. The following week, there is a night game. Towson come to town, 7 p.m. SEC Network Plus. And then the week after that, first SEC game of the year, Mississippi State coming to Columbia, 4:15 kickoff on SEC Network. So you get a real early game to begin the year. The weather's probably going to be in the mid to upper 90s if I had to guess. Maybe everyone will get lucky. It'll somehow be in the 80s, which I think would be a big win in a lot of ways. Obviously, a night game is always good. And then that 4:15 kickoff, I kind of like it. I do. I like having that in-between of, like, you get home, there's still some football on, but and then you get to watch some of the early games. But, yeah, I mean, I like the way this schedule looks so far.
I look at that game against Kent State in week number 1, and I can't help but think what a missed opportunity you would have had if Miami was coming into town. You could have potentially been like the 7:30 ABC game that weekend because that obviously would have been a huge matchup, would have gotten a lot of buzz. Instead, you're playing Kent State, and you're probably going to get a sunburn by the end of the first quarter.
Well, yeah, I don't think South Carolina, I don't think any other matchup would have gotten the green light over Clemson LSU that weekend, but to be the ABC game that week. But
you could have at least gotten a better time slot.
Maybe. I still think you're playing in the daytime regardless, but nevertheless, 12:45. And here's the thing: for those types of games that are kind of going to be like that, like the only problem I do have with the schedule, and this is just from my standpoint as a writer, for fans, I know they love it. But, playing a team like Towson at 7 o'clock at night when the game's going to be like 50 to like nothing or something, a blowout type of score, I would rather see that game during the middle of the day. But I understand it's early in the season. You want to have some night games. Who knows how many South Carolina's actually going to have this season. And it's going to be really hot, so why not have it be a little bit of a night game? But that home opener, I was a little surprised seeing a 12:45 slot, but I do like it.
I think with what you're doing now, and again, we've talked a lot about scheduling and all that kind of stuff in the SEC based on the conversations having at the SEC spring meetings. I think you're kind of setting yourself up for a future where you're probably going to be playing a lot of these early kicks on opening weekend because you don't really have any marquee opponents lined up in the foreseeable future, because right now Clemson is the team that's always going to satisfy that one power out of conference opponent every single year. And of course, that game doesn't happen until the last week of the regular season. So when you're playing the Towsons, when you're playing Appalachian States and these type teams like that, unlike, the Alabamas of the world that can still get a 7:30 kick against those kind of teams on week number one, you're probably, locking yourself in to being these early hot kicks on week number one because of the type of opponents you're going to be playing those weeks.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Yeah, I mean, look, when you play teams like this, you're probably more subject to get some more, let's call it less ideal time slots for the fans. But even then, I think still finding a way to be on national television on SEC Network, I think, is a win in a lot of ways. And, I'm surprised only one SEC Network Plus game in those first three. But, yeah, I mean, I kind of just wonder what the rest of the schedule is going to look like. I do wonder, again, how many night games is South Carolina actually going to get this season? I figure probably, run through the schedule here, Tyler, and we can probably piece it together, don't you think?
Yeah, probably so. So, again, those first three games all at home with Kent State, Towson, and Mississippi State. You then go on the road to Alabama, and realistically, you have a shot at both those teams being undefeated at that point in time. Alabama will be ranked. I doubt South Carolina would be at that point in time. That, to me, I kind of feel like that's maybe a 3:30 kick in Tuscaloosa. Like, I believe the last one was also 3:30, right, when they were out there a couple years ago?
Well, last year was 3:30, and then the year before that was it was a noon kick.
Okay, so it was a noon kick. Okay.
I agree. I don't see that being a night game. I don't. I think that'll probably be sometime during the day, but I agree with you. Well, I think I could go with 3:30 on that one.
Kentucky comes to town after that. That, to me, screams 7:45 on the SEC Network. That just kind of seems like one of those kind of games.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's definitely probably going to be a night game. Two teams that I think are going to be pretty interesting to watch this year from the standpoint of we just don't know what their ceiling really looks like this year. But yeah, I agree. About 7:45 seems right.
How about at Florida the week before the bye on October 10th?
I'd like to say night game, but I feel like history tells us with this matchup, it's typically a day game. I could see this kind of being, depending on how Florida is too, and how South Carolina is, I could see this being like a noon kick.
Yeah, probably so. When they came here a couple years ago in that game that Carolina gave away with those fourth downs to Ricky Pearsall, was that a noon kick, or was that 3:30?
That was a 3:30 kick.
Okay. So after that, you have the bye. Then Tennessee comes to town. First time you've seen them in Williams-Brice Stadium since obviously the big upset back in 2022. I feel like, because that'll kind of be the storyline of the game. Hey, last time Tennessee was here, here's what happened. I could see that getting like maybe not ABC 7:30, but like ESPN 7 o'clock type of thing.
I think this is 100% going to be a night game. Channel-wise, yeah, your guess is as good as mine. Again, it really just comes down to where these teams are at in the season. If they're both ranked, sure, I could see this being an ABC game, but I think for right now, at the very least, it's definitely going to be a night game. It feels like this one probably needs to be in that time slot.
After that, you go on the road to Oklahoma on Halloween, and I don't know why. This just, to me, says 11 a.m. local kick, noon on, like, ABC or something like that.
Well, the last time they were out there, that was the case, and last year was also an early kick. I think 3 times the charm. I think it's going to be another early kick out there. I could see this being 11:45 out there in Norman.
A&M comes to Williams-Brice after that. Honestly, I could buy any of those time slots. Maybe, like, if Carolina was doing well enough to be ranked, then I think you find yourself in maybe like a 3:30 slot. If Carolina is bad, like they were last year when these two teams played, probably a noon kick.
I'm going to go night game on this one. I think this will be South Carolina's big home night game of the year. It is homecoming too. A&M's supposed to be really good this year. Carolina, we'll see. I think this is going to find its way into a night slot.
After that, you go to Arkansas November 14th. That just kind of feels like a 4:15 SEC Network special. What do you think?
Yeah, either that or noon. I think it's destined for a daytime slot.
We now get to Cupcake Saturday. Carolina not playing a cupcake as they'll play host to Georgia on that day. And you have a couple other compelling matchups in the SEC that day. LSU, Tennessee, Texas A&M, Oklahoma. Really, that's kind of it. So it's slim pickings as far as the conference goes. You could find yourself, especially considering the fact Georgia will probably be ranked pretty high at that point in time. Maybe you could get a night game out of that.
I think this is 12:45 ABC.
You think 12:45? Okay.
Yeah, I think this is going to be definitely a day game. I'm sure, I don't know how it necessarily works, but I'm sure South Carolina would push for this to be maybe a little bit of a later game because it's going to be senior day and all that. But I think this is definitely an early game.
And then after that, you go on the road to Memorial Stadium taking on Clemson. Why should we think this isn't going to be a noon game?
Yeah, it's been a long time since this has been a night game, especially at Clemson. Like, I'm trying to think of the last time South Carolina, probably the last time I would guess it has to have been the blowout game from like 2018, I think it was, when they lost like 56-7. Or no. It was, what year was Jake Bentley when they lost like 56-35? I think that might have been. It was either that game or the one after that where they lost like 56-7. Whatever the order of that was the last time they had a night game at Clemson against South Carolina, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think you're right on that because, of course, when in Rattlers last year in 23, that was a night game, and that was the ugliest, just sloppiest night game of offensive football maybe we've ever seen, where Carolina, had the fumble return for a touchdown in the first play, and that's kind of it for the entire night. So yeah, that was the last time it was a night game here. But I think you're right. It's been a handful of years since you had a night game up there at Memorial Stadium.
It was 2018. They lost 56-35. I'd like to say this is a night game, but my brain tells me this is going to be another noon kick. It just seems like South Carolina and Clemson, like you said, Tyler. I think destined is the right word. 12 p.m. ACC network, or maybe it'll be an ABC or ESPN game.
Yeah, and look, if both of these teams are floating around 6 to 7 wins at that point in time, then I think the networks kind of say, all right, let's kind of get this thing out of the way. Though when they were two teams in the top 15 a couple years ago, that was also a noon kick. So you just never really know, but it just kind of seems like ESPN perennially likes to put this game at noon for whatever reason.
Just because there's a lot of other good rivalry games going on. Yeah, it's going to be tough to get into the back half of the day with A&M, Texas probably taking up the night slot. You're going to have Georgia Tech. I mean, this is probably, the way South Carolina and Clemson get back into a nighttime slot, I think if A, both teams are really good, or B, you move up back to a day on Black Friday eventually, but we'll see if that ever happens.
I was going to say, once we get to 2027, this series returns back to Williams-Brice Stadium, possibility of it being on Black Friday, because we know Carolina is in favor of that. So who knows? Maybe we could see that shift to Friday in next year.
It's the yearly discussion I feel like we have every couple of months. We'll see what happens, but yeah, I think this is probably bound for an early kick out there at Memorial Stadium.
We'll obviously find out those kickoff times as time goes along, especially once we get into the season. But we know the first three, which starts off with Kent State at 12:45 on Saturday, September 5th, which is exactly 100 days from now. And our countdown from 100 down to 0 begins on the other side as we discuss what that number 100 can mean for Gamecock football this upcoming season. It is The Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Feltry along with you on your Thursday here on The Game. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Veltri along with you here on your Thursday on the game. We are finally at the 100-day mark until kickoff, and each and every day we're going to make that countdown matter by taking that number of how many days until kickoff and having a discussion about Gamecock football in this upcoming season based upon it. And we'll start with the number 100 today, Jack. Question for you, a trivia question, I guess. Can you tell me the last time that South Carolina had a 100-plus yard rusher in a game?
Let's think. So none last year.
Nope.
2024. It would have been Rocket.
Not Rocket.
Not Rocket.
Not
Rocket
Rocket.
didn't have 100.
Well,
you tell me Rocket Sanders didn't have 100 yards?
No, he did, but he was not the last 100-yard rusher for South Carolina in a game.
So somebody between Oscar Attaway?
Not Oscar Attaway.
What? Oh man,
He was not the last one.
oh my gosh! But this is during the 24 season.
Yes. Now, it doesn't have to be a running back.
Oh, good point. Last. Oh well, it'd be Illinois.
That is correct. 166 yards on the ground against Clemson. That was the last time. You know,
right.
it's really funny, right? We talk about everything that's gone wrong with men's sports at South Carolina, and we all go back to that game. Whatever fan out there made a promise or met, the devil at the crossroads or whatever to win that game, all the bad juju that's happened since then, also the last time South Carolina had a 100-plus yard rusher in a game. It all goes back to that Clemson game, man.
It's crazy. Rocket did have 100-yard games, right?
Oh yeah, no, he did. He ran for 143 against LSU, 144 against Texas, 126 against Vanderbilt. So he just wasn't the last 100-plus yard rusher for South Carolina.
Yeah, and I think that you mentioned that about Lenoris. I think that does scream that South Carolina's had a running back problem probably since that 24 season, like last year especially, where they just did not have a really great run game at all until Matthew Fuller kind of emerged late in the year. So yeah, they definitely need to get back to finding a way to have a 100-plus yard rusher for a game this season.
Matthew Fuller could have maybe had 100 yards against LSU because he ripped off that 72-yard touchdown and then didn't touch the ball for like 2 quarters after that. So he made your best case for being one of those guys last year. He just didn't get enough touches to make it happen.
Yeah, I don't understand why he really didn't get those touches after that, because you'd think guy that has a big run like that, South Carolina's running back room really hasn't done much this last year. Why not give him an opportunity to get more carries? But that's in the past, and I think for this year, you're probably looking at Fuller probably being one of those top guys this year.
Well, this has been a consistent problem in the entire Beamer era. Again, you haven't had a 100-plus yard rusher in a game since Sellers did it against Clemson now 2 seasons ago. And Coach Beamer has coached 63 games here at South Carolina. And only in only 12 of those games have you had a 100-plus yard rusher. That is less than 20% of the games that you've coached here with having a guy over the 100-yard mark. And when you look at the numbers year in and year out, they've been 11th or worse in the SEC in rush yards per game with every season, with the exception of 2024, where they were 4th in the SEC that year, where, again, you had Sellers and Rocket Sanders as a good 1-2 punch when it came to your running game. And the thing about that was, and we knew this when Rocket Sanders was brought in via the transfer portal, you knew what you had in him. You knew that he had already established himself as a legitimate SEC running back. He dealt with injuries. That was a concern. But you knew when he was healthy, he could be a guy capable of doing those kind of things on the ground. You don't really have that this year. You have a guy in Matthew Fuller that you have the most confidence in, I would feel like, and he's gotten a lot of buzz from what happened in spring practice. But his accomplishments, and everybody in this room's accomplishments, running back room's accomplishments, pale in comparison to what you have with Rocket Sanders going into the 2024 season.
The best way to sum it up, Tyler, of what you said right there, is that nobody is proven in that running back room. Nobody is the clear alpha dog in that room. 24, it was Rocket, and then kind of everyone else. And Oscar Attaway was a nice, secondary option to have. And then you can kind of say the young guys like Joe Warren Howell, Matthew Fuller at the time when they were young guys in that room. They were the guys that still hadn't proven themselves. And I feel like this year is kind of that same boat of where you have a lot of guys in that room. You really rebuilt that running back room through the transfer portal with the amount of guys you brought in for sure. But there's no Rocket Sanders in that room right now, if that makes sense. You didn't go out and get a guy that can be your Rocket Sanders. Like Christian Clark might be the closest thing you have, but that's, he really, we don't know if he's going to be that guy for South Carolina. And shoot, we don't know if he's going to be the starter because Matthew Fuller is back. And, I wouldn't discount Jawarn Howell either, those other guys. So there's a lot of uncertainty in that room. But I think that's kind of maybe a good thing for Carolina in a lot of ways. Like, yes, you'd like to have a proven running back, but through these first few weeks here, you kind of get to figure out who your top option is going to be, and somebody from that room will hopefully emerge.
Yeah, when you look at the three guys they brought in via the transfer portal with Christian Clark, Sam Dixon, and Jabri Coleman, Clark's the only one that really have anything on. And again, the only thing was him running for 100 yards in the Citrus Bowl against Michigan because the other running backs in that room had left the team at that point in time. But that's really it. It's basically a one-game sample size, and the other guys just haven't gotten enough run. What Coleman didn't play at all at Penn State this past year, so we really don't know what he is at the college level. So you're hoping these guys have high upside. You bring back, again, Fuller, Jawarn Howell, as you mentioned, who, in my mind, he wouldn't stay here if he doesn't think he can be one of the dudes in this running back room, because I feel like he could have options to go other places and get some better playing time. And then Isaiah Gustav, who just he was just kind of there last year, right? Like, he got a couple of carries, but you almost kind of forgot that he was in the running back room. And it's like, well, he's still here. Do I expect anything out of him? Not necessarily, but he's another body, and maybe he'll surprise us. I don't know.
Yeah, I almost forgot about him because it's just like, what happened to him, right? It's like he really didn't get much action at all last year. So you have a lot more bodies in the room, which is fine because you always need running back depth, but you need somebody to be that guy for you. And right now, I just don't know who that is. The easy option is probably Matthew Fuller, but I don't know. Christian Clark's maybe the next best guess, but beyond that, it's like, take a look at those other running backs in the room. Jabri Coleman, Sam Williams Dixon, like guys like that. What did they do at their previous schools? Barely played. Jawarn Howell he's gotten a few moments here and there, but not a ton of action. And then, you look at Gustav. I mean, really, his Colorado sample size is the bigger thing to look at here. So, the summer, the fall camp, it's going to really maybe help give an idea of who the guy is in that room. But I feel like we really won't know until you get into SEC play during those first few weeks of the year, where hopefully you have an answer by then of who that running back is. Not saying you can't do it by committee for a portion of the year, but at some point you kind of want that one guy to emerge, maybe two guys, and then you roll with it from there.
Well, and of course, Lenore Sellers very capable of being the leading rusher on the team himself this upcoming season. And going back to that 2024 season where you had Rocket Sanders, he provided such a good complement to Lenore Sellers that he was a viable threat, especially when you ran some of those like RPOs and stuff like that. You had to account for both those guys because both those guys could hurt you a lot on the ground, and you just didn't have that last season. So having somebody that can establish themselves, that can free up Lenore Sellers a little bit, will obviously help him out in the run game as well. And then just seeing where his confidence is at, right? Because last year there were so many situations, confidence and his ability to take off and run. There were so many situations last year where we're like, man, why aren't you just taking the ball and running for a first down or trying to get a couple yards about it? He held on to the ball too much, and that's what we're obviously hoping Kendall Browse is able to get back out of him, because we know those abilities are there. He just didn't utilize them the same way a season ago, and we put more of that blame on Mike Shula.
But also, it is on him to be a better decision maker, right? Like, when the ball is in his hands, he needs to be able to make those decisions in a split second and figure out what to do. Yes, the play calling did not help him. Yes, the blocking up front was not good at all, really. But at the end of the day, he's got special abilities, and he knows. I'm sure he has some say in when he can take off and run, right? Especially now this year, he should have that power. Like, when he feels like it's time to run, he should be able to go out there and do it.
Yeah, so We'll obviously see, but I know you can't survive in the SEC without a run game, and here's hoping South Carolina gets that back on track this year with a revamped running back room and obviously an offensive line room that we hope is going to be a lot better than it has been in years past. So we'll see. We'll have our 99-day countdown tomorrow and maybe talk about some Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy and what his impact can be this upcoming season. But coming up next, we're going to switch gears back to the SEC spring meetings. One talking point has gotten a lot of people buzzing, and I want to dive down the rabbit hole of what exactly that might look like. I'll tell you about it next. It is The Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Feltry on your Thursday here on The Game. All right, welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Belcher with you on your Thursday here on the game. The SEC spring meetings have garnered a lot of headlines for a variety of topics that we talked about yesterday with Jordan Kay of the State newspaper. One of the biggest ones being the idea of maybe the SEC breaking away and doing its own thing. That's something that Kirby Smart talked about the other day on the heels of his school's president, Jerry Moorhead, saying the same thing.
But I've said this for a long time to our president. I've been a huge advocate that if we can't find rules that everybody plays by, then we should, play our own. I'm not afraid of that. I'm not afraid to break away and say that our conference is strong enough to go out and have and play. I mean, like, if we could actually function and it financially would make our programs more stable and we could support things financially, I'm talking about all the sports, and do by our own rules, I'd be all for that. I mean, I've been to this meeting now 10, 11 times, and it's frustrating at times to say, well, we can't do this because of litigation. We can't do this because of litigation. We can't do this because we'll get sued. We can't do that. And we're just trying to do things for the betterment of the sport and the betterment of the student athletes. And that's not curtailing what money they make. I'm not advocating that they make less money. I'm fine with what student athletes make. I'm trying to make it where it's as equal and as comparable footing for everybody, and it's not a race to the bottom, as they say.
Jack, this idea of the SEC doing its own thing has, again, as Kirby Smart alluded to there, been battered around a lot these past couple of years, and I don't know if it's ever going to happen or not, but I think we've learned nothing's impossible in today's age of college sports, right?
Yeah, definitely. There's nothing is off the table. Nothing seems that far-fetched. Like, even the craziest ideas, I don't think are truly that impossible when you really think about it.
So I was thinking about this yesterday. I'm like, okay, what would that look like? What if the SEC was exclusive to itself and it went off and it did its own thing? So I've come up with a basically SEC independent format that I want to throw at you and see what you think of it, okay?
All right, let's hear it.
So this is really based off the way the NFL structures things. So some of this stuff might sound familiar. You have 16 teams. You would have four-team divisions in the SEC. Within your own division, you play your regular opponents twice. So, and I just split this up based on geography. So I had Carolina in a division with Georgia, Florida, and Tennessee. That's just what I'm calling Division One. So every single season, you'd play both of those teams twice, one home, one away. Those are the teams that are closest to you from a geography standpoint. Like the NFL, you would have one set division where you'd play all four of the other opponents there. Again, you vary home and away, but those are 4 more games. So you've got yourself up to 10 games now based on playing that one division and all 4 of their teams. And then the other 2 divisions, you would match up with whoever the corresponding team is based on divisional finish from the prior year. So if Carolina finished 3rd in its division, then they'd play the 3rd place team from Division 3 and the 3rd place team from Division 4 to get yourself to 12 full games of the regular season. After that, you would have the 4 division winners automatically go to the playoff. And then the 2 teams with the best winning percentage that didn't win their division also get in as wild cards. So you'd have a 6-team playoff where the top 2 teams will get byes. And then the other, the 3, 6, and 4, 5 would play each other. Then 1 versus the lowest seed, 2 versus the next lowest seed, and so forth. You'd have games on campus through all rounds with the championship game taking place in Atlanta for the SEC championship. That's just the final goal instead of a step along the way to the college football playoff like we have now.
I like it. I do. I think if the SEC is going to break away, if that ever does happen, which, again, speaking of like things that seem impossible, I would not rule this out. I feel like this is something that we'll see where things go in the future, especially as there's disagreements over the playoff format and all that, and the bickering between the big powers in these conferences. Things can happen. Who knows? But I do like this idea. I think it would be good in a lot of ways. But yeah, I think it could be it could be worthwhile maybe.
Now, is this something you think fans would support? Right? Because, and especially in the SEC, we are so ingrained. Like, every SEC fan base cares about football a lot, right? And yeah, there's plenty of fan bases in the Big Ten and the Big 12 and the ACC, but you can't tell me that the passion for Northwestern football is the same as the passion for Kentucky football or Mississippi State football or something like that. When you talk about teams they're on the lower end of these conferences. Like every fan base cares in the SEC. And I feel like even if we went to this independent thing, which, yes, if you listen to me closely, that doesn't include a game against Clemson. That doesn't include playing any other teams out of conference. You would only play in the SEC, and the SEC champion would be the SEC championship would be the only goal you're trying to achieve during the season. I think this is something that's still, now look, there'll be a lot of people that would tune out and say, hey, that's not college football to me. But I still think this is something that would pull some pretty good numbers.
I think the numbers would be good on this, but the way I look at it, though, and maybe it's not a big deal, you're really just pulling the demographic of those fan bases. I think you'd have a tougher time in terms of like television ratings and whatnot, and who knows how much that really matters, but I feel like you'd have a tougher time pulling the same numbers nationally as you would if it were, if the way the current schedule plays out. I feel like it'd be tougher to pull those numbers. That's just my opinion, but because you're breaking away from the rest of the sport. But I don't know. That's a whole other can of worms to open eventually. But I think this could be good. Would the interest be the same? I don't know. I think it would still be pretty good, but it's tough to say if it'd be as well as it is right now.
Now, if every power conference decided that they were going to go independent and do their own thing, I still think the SEC would win out overall. Like if everybody was doing their own thing and there was no correlation of, all right, we're going to take all the champions and put them against each other, I still think the SEC would probably end up being the most successful out of this.
I agree. And I just wonder how much value there would be in winning the SEC championship. Like, does it hold the same meaning as winning a national championship? You know what I mean? Like that to me is the tough part. Now, maybe there is something you do at the end where, I don't know, just spitballing here on top of your discussion here. Maybe the 4 power conferences, the champion from each of those conferences, maybe they duke it out in a 4-team playoff when it's all said and done. I don't know. Maybe just to still have a national champion, but I don't know, because again, if everyone's breaking away, then what's the point in linking back up at the end of the year? You know what I mean? But I do think it would just be kind of weird. You would essentially just, I don't know. It's a lot. It's a lot to think about.
It is. And again, if I had to take my guess, is this ever going to happen? Probably not. I feel like, because again, the reason why the ACC and the Big 12 yielded the decision-making power to the Big 10 and the SEC in terms of what the future of the playoff format's going to be is because they were afraid that those two would break off and form a super league on their own. Now, the SEC's kind of isolated itself because they're the only one that's still stumping for a 16-team playoff where everyone's going for 24. So this idea of the SEC doing its own thing is starting to take shape a little bit more. I don't think we get that far down the road. I do think Jerry Moorhead is maybe being a little too extreme with some of the things that he was saying and what Kirby Smart was reacting to the other day. But it's an interesting exercise in terms of okay, what would that look like? And again, it's kind of essentially an NFL model with the way that the conference would break down and how you'd ultimately decide a champion. And again, I think a lot of us would still be in favor of it, would still support that, even though we'd be losing a lot of tradition in college football, which would include the Carolina-Clemson game.
Yeah, I think things would have to get really rough for that to happen. Me personally, I don't think that would really ever happen. But again, with the way the game and the sport has changed over the years, I would never rule it out for sure, 100%. But it's something interesting to ponder about. But how realistic is it? Probably not anytime soon.
Let me know your thoughts. 803-404-6100 on the Firehouse Subs text line. Would you support that model of the SEC being its own independent thing in college football? We'll hit some of those coming up on the other side as we wrap up the hour. It is The Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry along with you here on your Thursday on The Game. All right, welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Felcher wrapping up hour number 1 on your Thursday here on the game. Coming up next in the Garnet Trust Hour, by the way, Gamecock softball's Lexi Winters going to join myself and Wes Mitchell. We'll recap the season that was and also talk about her future in the game of softball as well. So, again, that coming up at the top of the hour here at 10 o'clock. But, Jack, I asked the question in the last segment as we were talking about this idea of the SEC breaking away and what that could look like. And my thought process immediately went to an NFL type of model where you have 4 divisions. You play your own division twice, everybody in your own division twice. You have your division winners and a couple wild cards in the playoff, and then you ultimately have an SEC champion, national champion, whatever you want to call it. But it's all exclusive within the SEC if this breakaway did occur. And we got a lot of people that weighed in the Firehouse Subs text line at 803-404-6100. Chad says that's a great idea, and I'd sign up for that tomorrow. Jack says no part of me wants the SEC to break away, but I'd have to support them if I did. And that's something that really stands out to me here, Jack, because college football, unlike any other sport, and I say this a lot, has a connection to fans that can't be replicated by the NFL or NBA or MLB because a lot of people went to the school, right? A lot of people are legacies at the school. Their parents went there. Their grandparents went there. You are tied to your school more than you are your professional sports team. It can be a lot harder to break away. Now, would you view maybe less of college football in general because, what's happening in the Big Ten or the SEC or the ACC doesn't matter to South Carolina? Probably. But if the Gamecocks are playing on Saturday, even in an exclusive independent SEC, you're probably going to those games or watching them on TV.
No, you're right, for sure. Like, I think still, regardless of this potential idea or if things remain the same, I think you're still going to get, the fan base won't change. Because at the end of the day, even if the SEC broke away, the games are still being played in the SEC. It's just you're not playing the Clemsons of the world or your other rivals or out-of-conference games. So, it doesn't change too much from that standpoint. It's just you're broken away. But, I agree, though, with some of those takes of, like, people don't want to see that change. Like, I think it would have to take something catastrophic or just really damaging for the SEC to really break away. And I just don't know when or if that day will ever come.
Well, and the funny thing about breaking away, and we're not just talking about this from the standpoint of not being able to agree on, what the playoff format should be. It also stems from the lack of enforceability when it comes to rules. And this idea that, okay, if the SEC went off and did its own thing, then suddenly everybody's going to start following rules and not bending them or operating gray areas. That's ridiculous to me. Like, I don't, like you'd have your own set of rules, but you'd still have everybody breaking them and twisting them as much as they can. So this utopia that the SEC would be able to operate flawlessly on its own, I just don't think is realistic if we ever got to that point.
No, definitely not. I would agree with you on that 100%.
So, again, it's the extreme end of this, right? It's a conversation right now, and I think it's more, again, this kind of stems from Jerry Moorhead, the president of the University of Georgia, talking about this the other day at the SEC spring meetings. I think this is more to get people's attention of like, hey, this is chaos, as we've known for a while now. We need to try and wrangle this as much as we can, or bad things are going to happen, and a league like the SEC could stand on its own if it needed to, but I don't think there's anybody that necessarily wants that to happen, though, as we've got some people on the text line saying they'd still support it if they did.
It would be interesting to see if this ever actually came to fruition, how it would play out. But part of me also is like, I kind of hope it never really does get to that point. I don't know. I don't think it would have like that. To me, it's kind of comparable to like, these other leagues that are out there trying to compete with like the NFL and during the spring and whatnot, like the XFL, the UFL, things like that. I don't think it would necessarily have that. It may have a little bit of that feeling, but I think it's different because the SEC could definitely compete on its own with these other, the way the sport is currently.
Right.
But do we ever really want it to get to that point? I don't know. Probably not. I just don't think it would necessarily be the best thing for the sport in general.
One more thing here, and a nameless texter says college football has gone way down as far as fans being enthusiastic about where the sport is right now. And that's the thing we always come back to. With all these conversations about the future and formats and decisions and all this kind of stuff, nobody thinks about what college football fans want. That's not at the forefront of Greg Sankey's mind. He's concerned about making the most money for the SEC as possible, and he does a very good job of that. But the fan experience, what's in the best interest for fans, is never something that's going to be at the front of that conversation.
No, absolutely not. Money comes before all else. Whatever can get the SEC the most profit, most bang for its buck, they're going to do. They're going to do whatever's best for them. And the fans are an afterthought, I think, in a lot of ways. Like sure, they may say that the fans are at the forefront of their minds, but let's be real. It is a business at the end of the day, and that's what matters most to them.
Well, and in terms of the fans, if you feel like if you want to make a difference, if you want to make your voice actually heard, the only way to do that is by not watching, right? Like you vote with your remote. And if you're not watching the content, if you're not giving them record ratings, if you're not spending money on going to these games, they'll take notice. Now, again, I just don't think that's going to happen because football's so ingrained in our society, especially in SEC country, people aren't just going to break away from it as much as many people may threaten to do so. So I just don't think the fan revolt will be large enough to really have an impact to catch the attention of the people in charge here to really make fans' voice matter at any point in all this.
Yeah, but again, like we kind of talked about here, and I think some of the texters agree, like, yeah, the fan interest will still be there. I do wonder if it takes a dip at all, but at the end of the day, like, most people are still going to support their team and their fan base.
Yeah, again, hopefully we don't get to this point, but an interesting little insight into what an independent SEC could look like at some point in the future. That'll do it for hour number 1 on the Extra Point. Coming up next, Lexi Winters of Gamecock Softball going to join us on the other side for the Garnet Trust Hour here on your Thursday on the Game.
Are you a small business owner, a church, or other entity in need of a new HVAC system? Well, AAA Heating and Air has exciting news for you then. AAA now offers financing to qualified organizations to aid them in installing a new light commercial HVAC system. It's as easy as calling AAA Heating and Air for a quote or finding them online at callAAAtoday.com. Tell them Jack from 107.5 The Game sent you. At AAA Heating and Air, they've got your back. They're offering up to 12-month payment plans on repairs with no credit check required. That's right. No need to worry about your credit score in this case. As long as you're a homeowner with a valid bank account, you'll be good to go. So take control of your comfort today by giving a call to AAA Heating and Air at 803-677-1500. Again, the number to call AAA is 803-677-1500. Give them a call today and breathe easy again.
All right, welcome back in. It is the 10 o'clock hour. Time for the Garnet Trust Hour, brought to you by our friends over at Krantz Cooling, Heating, and Plumbing. Tyler Head, Wes Mitchell along with you here. Today joined by Gamecock Softball's Lexi Winter. Hang out with us for the next couple segments here. Lexi, appreciate your time this morning. How are we doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. We were having a fun conversation of some things that maybe we'll share as the hour goes along, but good to have you in here, and obviously excited to talk some Gamecock softball.
Yeah, Lexi, like Tyler said, welcome in, and we were talking a little bit about nicknames. We won't go deep into the old school nickname here, but you're kind of not, and I asked you off air, I was like, so are you Lexi? Are you Winnie? I didn't know if Winnie was one of these things where Debo Samuel played football for Carolina. Mm-hmm. He is Debo now. Like, even though that was not his parents' given name. But you were telling us Winnie is kind of a little bit more of a fairly recent softball name. People don't like walk down the street and call you Winnie. It's Lexi.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, when I was a freshman, we had another girl named Lexi, and she was actually on staff this year. And she's Lexi Wagner, so it's a W. So they were saying that, like, since I was the freshman, my name got cut. So they came up with it. It was another upperclassman on the team at Charlotte, and she was trying to throw some out there using my last name. And she's like, we can do Elsa. We can do Snowflake. We can do this. I'm like, that doesn't sound good. I said, imagine yelling, go Snowflake, like, as I'm hitting or something. But she came up with Winnie, and it kind of stuck. And, yeah, I mean, at the field, in this last year, we had another player on the roster named Lexi. So it was definitely, like, by last name. So it was Shaver, Wagner, Winnie. And so it just kind of stuck.
Now, does everybody on the team have a nickname?
No.
No.
No. I mean, it really is just some of the girls would get one if, like, one of the teammates kind of assigned them one just from, like, our personal life. But most of the time, it wasn't like you need to do this. It wasn't like a rite of passage or anything.
It has to be natural, I guess. Yeah. And I guess if you have multiple people on the team with the same name, you almost have to do it. But let's go back in time a little bit beyond the nicknames, Lexi. And I've seen you talk about this on the 1801 podcast. And so were you literally a bat girl for Carolina softball growing up? And I know we've talked before on one of the shows about just what it meant to you to be able to come back and play here. But that's got to be an added layer that you were literally, like, as a kid, a part of the team, and then to actually go out there and play and start for 2 years. Did you play every game for the last 2 years? Mm-hmm. I was about to say, it feels like you did. So
maybe with the exception of, like, one or two. Yeah. But majority, pretty much every single game.
Yeah. Have you processed the fact that you, like, played here and, and that it is kind of over at this point, unfortunately?
Yeah, not fully. Mm-hmm. I would be lying if I said that I did, but it has come in, like, spurts so far, and I know it's going to continue to come, like, periodically especially through the summer, once the fall comes, and, like, softball kind of starts back up, and I realize that I'm not doing it anymore. I think that'll hit me a little bit harder than what it is right now, because even some of the other girls, like me and Q, have talked, and she was saying that it just feels like it's summer break, and, like, we just haven't reported back. But once people start reporting back, then it's going to kind of sit in a little bit more. But talking about, like, growing up a Gamecock, I mean, my whole entire family, like, bleed garnet and black. Like, even my family up in New Jersey, they're the same exact way. They know not to wear any Clemson orange. They know not to say Tigers. Like, they know what the buzzwords of, like, what not to do. But yeah, I was a Batgirl twice. I don't know the exact years. I think it was maybe 2012 and 2014. I had talked about it with Brian, our SID, before, and I think it's those 2 years. But yeah, I mean, my mom saw, like, a Facebook ad for it. She was able to apply me for it. And then I was able to hang out with the team right before the game. Then I was in the dugout the entire game, run out and get the bats. I was able to bring the balls to the umpire. So it was just something that, I don't know, any little girl would be like, yeah, I'm going to go flex this when I go to school the next day. But I went to camps there my entire life since I started playing. I mean, I have all the connections with alumni and people associated with the program since I was like a really young girl. And we were just talking about my dad. He actually worked on Mr. David and Miss Mitzi Beckham, who are like who the field's named after.
Right, yeah.
My dad used to work on their cars all growing up.
Wow.
And he actually worked on all of the coaches' cars when they were growing up, because they always get like a car deal or something of that sort, and they always were through Dick Smith. So my dad's worked on Bev Smith's car for years when I was little, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, can I come with you to work? Can I come see this? Can I come see that? But the connections run really deep. So I think sometimes it hits me like I had to make my Instagram post for like my career being over and like softball being done. And I was looking through some of the photos that I had saved through just the last 2 years. And it's like me taking pictures with like the younger girls at the games and our signature Sundays after we won the regionals last year at home. And then I also had in my locker, we had to clean out our lockers last week, which was, I was crying. I couldn't stop. I had my mom on the phone with me, like, just look, and I'm sobbing as I'm just like going through my clothes and going through my little things that I had in the top of my locker. And I honestly forgot that at the beginning of this year, I put softballs in there that I had signed when I was younger. So like Chelsea Hawkins, Jordan Bizzle, Eleni Page, Cody Eski, like a lot of the people that I looked up to of coming to all those softball games. I mean, I think I had 2 softballs in there that were signed by all of them, and I kept them in my locker the whole season. I honestly forgot because they were pushed back from like all my hair products, my perfumes. But so I think having to see that, it kind of made me think a little bit more of like, well, now little girls are coming up to me. And I was like, and that was me when I was younger. So it just sits a little bit differently. And I just have like a different sense of gratitude for it, of when the young girls come and ask us, even after a loss, to sign something, like that was me. So it sits a little bit differently.
So you grow up a fan of the school, you play high school at White Knoll, have a great career there. Was there interest from South Carolina in you out of high school, or was it not until you went to Charlotte, obviously with Coach Chastain Woodard, that you finally got your opportunity to come here?
Yeah, no, so recruiting, it was right during COVID. My junior year, which was when recruiting could start for softball players after the rule change, it was 2020. So, I mean, they couldn't see me. No coaches could see me. No one came to games. It was all through this, like, digital recruiting page called Athletes Go Live. I don't even know if it's still a thing anymore, but
I don't know if I've heard of that.
They were definitely getting their revenue in 2020 because every team had it, and you could see like who tapped in to watch the games. And you could see everyone who was watching the games. And I had interest in USC and Coach Bev and Coach Navi and the previous coaching staff. But the difference was that they told me that like I probably wouldn't be catching. They had, I think, 4 catchers already on staff, with another one coming in the year before me. And that's something that like my travel ball coaches like told us to do, is when you're researching your programs, like look for your position on their rosters and see how many players they have in that position group. Because if you're okay with not playing in your position and you have to try and find something else, then that's totally okay. But if you want to play in your position, like you kind of have to make sure that there's even a possibility for you to get some playing time in that position group. So I knew that there was at least 5 catchers that would be there when I would get there as a freshman. And I knew that was not what I wanted. I wanted to play. I wanted to start. I wanted to at least have an opportunity to compete, to be a starting catcher. So that happened, and then they were saying, because I mean, in high school, I took dual enrollment courses, so I was pretty much a sophomore coming into college. If I came straight to USC, I would be a complete year ahead. So I was really having my heart set on everything with USC, but I mean, I wanted to play, and I knew that that just wasn't going to work for me. And then Coach Taylor Wyke, who's now at Duke, but she was at Charlotte when I was going through the recruiting process, and she was there my freshman year. She had messaged me on the September 1st because she had watched some of our games through the Athletes Go Live. And then I just fell in love with Charlotte, and I knew that they only had maybe one other catcher whenever I'd be a freshman. So I knew that then I would have a better chance of actually becoming like an everyday starter.
So you knew yourself, like you knew, hey, I'm not going to, I'd love to play over here, but I want to play, not wait until my senior year and roll through 4 or 5 other catchers. Obviously, it worked out. Were you starting as a freshman at Charlotte? So you just came in and just started playing and never stopped.
And which is, it's so crazy because we've talked about it. Like me and Ari, Sam Gress, Ella, the 4 of us have talked about it. Abby Knight, when we were all at Charlotte, we would talk about how crazy like the invisible string was, like just for the group of us and Charlotte as a whole. Not even just me, but our opening game my freshman year was at Charlotte against USC. And I started that game and it was like, my heart was racing. I mean, not only is it like your opening game of my freshman season, like my first ever real college softball game, but it was against USC. And I was like, this is insane. And I remember my parents, we were all talking about it, where it's like, how everything kind of just aligned. But I mean, it's a little bit different for me rather than just the group of us. But we would even say it, like when last year with all of them here, we'd be like, wow, well, we played our first game at Charlotte against USC and now where we are. Like now look where we are. So, but yeah, I mean, it was a lot. I mean, as a freshman, like you're given a lot of responsibility, not just as a freshman, but as a catcher. The entire infield, other than maybe one position, was also a freshman or like an underclassman. Everyone else was upperclassmen. So, I mean, I really had to kind of grow up and figure out the lay of the land really, really quick to kind of be successful and to kind of keep that starting spot. Hitting like in the lineup would kind of like fluctuate, which of course it will with any lineup, honestly. But becoming the starting catcher, like I kind of set myself up for the rest of my career, because starting from the freshman year, I mean, I never played anywhere else, and I caught almost every game since then.
Gamecock Softball's Lexi Winters joining us here in the Garnet Trust Tower, presented by Krantz Cooling, Heating, and Plumbing. We'll have more on the other side as your Thursday rolls along here on the game. All right, welcome back in. It is the Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling, Heating, and Plumbing. It's our head in West Mitchell hanging out with Lexi Winters of Gamecock Softball here on your Thursday on the game. And a lot of good stuff in that first segment there. I want to go back to what you were saying, though, about being a bat girl. You said that was around 2012, right? Is that the first season you said you did that?
Yeah, I think so. That's just off the top of my head. I could go fact check it, or my mom may text me and I get it on my watch to fact check it. But I'm pretty sure it was 2012.
So if that is the case, because Coach Woodard's last year as a player was 2011, but she was a GA in 2012. Did you know her back then? Was there already a relationship there before you started getting recruited when she was at Charlotte?
Honestly, no. I mean, I knew that she was an alumni just from knowing of the Charlotte program. But, I mean, I knew she was a GA, but that was like right before I started getting into it. Taylor Wyke, who was a coach at Charlotte, she was also a graduate assistant, but that was more near my time where she was there when I was going to camps. So I barely just missed Coach Ash in our little passing through USC.
You mentioned mom, or are mom and dad listening? Or did you tell them you were coming on?
I think my mom is. I was just on the phone with her. She has a big meeting at 11, so I think she's listening up until then.
Perfect timing.
I don't know if my dad is. He probably is. He probably has it playing in his office or something.
Well, he can always go back and rewind on our YouTube channel, so we can do that.
Perfect.
There you go. Shout out mom, shout out dad if you're listening. So what is next, Lexi? Have you decided? I think there was talk you might be helping out as a graduate assistant. I don't know if that's definitely the case or if that's official. What is kind of the plan coming up next?
Yeah, so the plan is to be a graduate assistant. Right now, we're in the process of trying to sublease my apartment because we had signed it thinking that we were going to be able to cover it for this next year. But with the way that things fall sometimes, stuff happens. So I'm actually going to be moving back home. I'm going to be living with my parents at home for this next year while getting my master's and helping out with the team. But we need my apartment sold. So if anyone is looking for housing in Columbia, in Rosewood, it's 3-bed, 3.5 bath. Last year was the first year it was built.
Is it a nice apartment?
Oh, it's great. It's a townhouse.
It's phenomenal.
It's in Pickens Corner. We have the cheapest rate out of all the units. I'm not even kidding. And we'll even negotiate some furniture. So if you're listening and you need somewhere to live, please DM me and we will get you set up for a tour.
How can you say no to that?
Exactly. And they had no idea that I was about to be dropping this in here, but please take it. If someone is interested or you know of someone, please message me.
Wes, there's a first time for everything, and the first ever real estate pitch we've ever had on one of our shows.
Yes, but she had that prepared, I feel like.
That was really good. That was well done.
No, but in all seriousness, though, trying to get that covered so that I'm not having to find a way to pay for that for next year. Because the money that I would get for my program, I mean, it's to cover my program, not to cover the apartment that I'm not going to be living in. So, yeah, if that can get figured out, then yeah, for sure, I'll be a graduate assistant and get everything settled and everything falls into place perfectly. But we got to get that covered first.
All right, somebody out there wants this apartment, so I'm just going to say it. Call us if you 803-444-6100.
Yeah,
we'll get you in touch with the right person. We're gonna make something happen here, Lexi.
If you call while she's here, we'll get your information.
Seriously,
and get you guys connected.
Somebody out there needs this apartment. So, Lexi, you're also doing lessons. At your house, right?
Yeah, so this over the summer, of course in the fall and the spring, it's going to be really difficult to try and do lessons on top of my schooling, on top of working with the team and the priorities that I'm going to have while being a graduate assistant. So my lessons, I'm pretty much going to just do them over the summer. I already have just some returners from the previous years and the off seasons that I've done lessons. But I'm actually doing it differently this year where I'm going through like a website booking so that it's not me trying to finagle everybody's schedule.
You're
at one
official
time.
now. That's
exactly. So I've found
business.
This website of like how to create like signing up online for appointments, even though I know it's not appointments, but I think a lot of hairstylists use the website. So I just used it and I changed it all up to kind of fit more for lessons and kind of more my style. But I'm going to start sharing that tomorrow, I think. And then my lessons, I'm either going to have them in my backyard at my house or at the LGS Nazareth Fields, which is 2 minutes down the road, which I grew up playing at. So it's going to be one or the other. Just depends on like what we're doing in the lesson, how the weather is. But I plan on using both of those. So if you want lessons, DM me, and you can DM me about the house too. So we can find a way to make it work.
So, but between being a GA, giving lessons, do you see yourself being a head coach in the future?
If I'm going to be honest, no. My deep down goal in life is not centered around softball. I really want to work in a school. I originally was going to do a counseling education master's here. I went through the entire interview process, the application process, then the interview process, because you have to get past the application. Then you get into the in-person interview, which was like the first ever professional thing other than like interviews and stuff like this, rather than a actual like job interview. And through the interview process, they were talking about the scheduling, and I was like, in my head, I thought I was going to be able to manage it a little bit better to fit the graduate assistant scheduling. And it just wasn't going to work. I mean, it was multiple nights a week right during practice time. It was starting in the summer, and then I was asked if I was interested in the AUSL possibly earlier on in the season, like February, and I had said yes. And I had to make this decision in March of if I was going to do the program. But in my head, I was like, you only get to play professional softball once in your life. Like, you can always go back and do a program if you need to. So I wanted to be a school counselor at first. And then after having to decline that position, I had to find a different program. So now I'm going to do language and literacy, a master's in education. And hopefully that can get me into a school, whether it's an interventionalist, a reading coach, a literacy coach, something of that sort, because my heart just really lies with like elementary schools and like helping students in a different way, just because I love school so much. So I really think that's where my heart's leading and where God's leading me to. If softball's on the side, you know, a little club team or something, maybe, we'll see. But I need a real job first for the salary.
So was teaching your major education, or what was your major?
My bachelor's was in psychology.
Okay.
Because at first I was choosing kind of between school counseling or like private counseling. And then as I started to like slowly dip my toes further into like the real world and like actual jobs, not just the ones that I create in my head, I was like, I really don't want to be a private counselor. I'd want to work somewhere where I'm working with kids more often. And I'm like, a school is exactly where I think I should be. So the psychology degree, yes, it helped, but I mean, it'll help me with language and literacy also, of just working with students that may have struggles or disabilities with reading or writing or understanding English at all. I mean, because you have the ESOL track. So, yeah, I mean, it'll come in handy at some point. It comes in handy with myself. So I kind of therapy myself at sometimes.
Well, you know, you can be a teacher and a softball coach at the school.
That's true. They've talked about that with like at White Knoll, my high school. But we'll see when that comes
I feel like
around.
you're kind of pushing back a lot on this whole coaching thing. Like,
It's not that I'm against it. It's just I don't want to put that's not my first goal in mind. So
Right.
like if it comes along, that's great. But I know that like softball, trying to be in the coaching world, it's like, I don't know what the word is, but it's not very stable sometimes. And I know that I do not want to be a college coach just because of the way that the scheduling is, the things that they have to deal with sometimes. And I know that that's not like my passion. Like more of my passion is working with kids and like being in a school environment. So if softball comes around, yeah, softball is my passion. But now that I have to be an actual adult, I mean, I have to kind of realign my priorities a little bit.
She's Lexi Winters of Gamecock Softball. We'll have more with her as the Garnet Trust Hour, presented by Krantz Cooling, Heating, and Plumbing, rolls along on your Thursday on the Game. All right, welcome back in. Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling, Heating, and Plumbing. It's Outerhead Wes Mitchell hanging out with Lexi winners of Gamecock softball here on your Thursday on the game. We haven't really dove too much into the actual on-field stuff in these past couple seasons, so let's get into that a little bit. Of course, you transfer over with Coach Ash from Charlotte, along with several other players, and you guys absolutely hit the ground running a year ago, had that long winning streak to start the season, and come, again, just inches away from reaching that goal of, getting to Oklahoma City. This year, a little bit more up and down, but still made the postseason regional out at UCLA a couple weeks ago, where unfortunately your season came to an end. How do you kind of sum up your 2 years overall of being a Gamecock softball player?
Yeah, honestly, I'm just grateful for it all. As much as you win and lose, the batting averages, the errors, the caught stealing, and like all of the little statistical things. But I mean, I was just really grateful for even the opportunity. I mean, we were talking about how I grew up like a lifelong Gamecock, and this was literally my childhood dream. I would write it on the back of papers. I would tell all my friends that I was going to the games because I wanted to be there one day. I mean, so I think like that kind of makes me kind of take a step back and realize that, like, yes, the numbers matter, but at the end of the day, I mean, I'm literally doing something that I've worked my entire life for, and I was lucky enough and blessed enough to even have the opportunity to do it, not just to do it, but be given a chance. But skill-wise, I mean, I used ChatGPT the other day because I was really curious to see how many innings that I've caught in my career. And I said, I don't feel like doing the math, so I'm just going to have ChatGPT do the math for me. And I looked it up, and I was like, can you tell me how many innings that Lexi Winters played or caught in her career? So it pulled out my stuff from Charlotte and South Carolina, and it said that I have caught between like 1,350 innings to 1,450 innings. So somewhere between like 1,300 to 1,400 innings. And I was like, that is absolutely insane, first of all. But I mean, I'm just grateful to say that I was able to do that, because not a lot of people can say that they were a 4-year starter, starting pretty much every single game at the position that they wanted to be starting in. Mm-hmm. Now, I wasn't just given it. I had to work really hard for it, but the fact that I was able to kind of reap the benefits from it, I mean, that was what I was more grateful for, rather than just actually being able to put the gear on every single day.
You have to have a certain mindset to play that position. Like, mm-hmm. And it's kind of interesting because you have to be tough, but there's also such a mental aspect to that. And how much did you enjoy the mental aspect of playing catcher? Because if I watched you guys this year, it seemed like you were constantly giving feedback, either to my pitcher, encouragement. I always would notice you're telling the dugout, oh, that was outside, or that was up, or is that just data for them too, or like are you ever kind of trying to? Do you ever like sneak in a little information for the umpire, like,
oh my
hey
gosh,
man, this thing's on the plate, like how just take that and run with it. Like I'm curious. I can see you're saying things, but obviously we can't hear what you're saying. Give us an example, like what type of feedback are you giving to all the different people you're communicating with?
Well, honestly, this is my favorite thing to talk about. So I could probably spend the entire hour that we have.
We can nerd out on this if you want. Like
I don't know. I am just like, it shocks me of all of the knowledge that you have to have. But like, I think about it and I don't realize that that's what I did until someone like you or like you're sitting here saying it to me. And I'm like, oh crap, I did do all that. And I sit and think about it. But I mean, you kind of have to break it down into little categories. So of course it's like you and your pitcher. So, I mean, you catch them in bullpens, you figure out how they move, when they're moving really well, when are they balanced, when is their breath lined up well. If her curveball is moving too far this way, I can see it in her glove by how she's like pushing out off the mound. So a lot of stuff with Jory, for instance, I mean, I could tell when she was off with one of her pitches because of how her body was leaning. Like if her body was leaning too far, then the pitch would be missed. And so then I would tell her like, okay, well the pitch was way too outside. It's because you're leaning way too much. And so it's like how to help her adjust it. Same thing with Emma Friedel. She bounces before she pitches, and it's just a part of our motor preferences and the stuff that she's worked on in bullpens. But the pace of how she bounces, like I could tell the difference between if she was moving too fast or too slow, and then in turn it messed up the pitch. Like her pitch wasn't as successful as it could be. So I don't know, that's like one monster in itself of just figuring out how your pitchers operate and what they need. And I know like who you can be tough on, like Sam Gress last year, I could look at her and be like, that wasn't good, like that was bad. But then I know with Emma or Jory, like it's more of like, hey, like just move it a little bit more outside, or it needs to go up a little bit more. Any type of verbiage that would work for them, like you just have to figure that out. Then you have the umpires. I love talking to umpires, introducing myself to them. I sit there and talk to them through the game, and it's all nice stuff because you have to keep them as your friends. And that was something that one of my first catching coaches ever told me. It's like your umpire is your best friend. Like you want to kind of kiss up to them a little bit, you know, they may help you a little bit more. And like that definitely is true. And I was like, no way. I was like, these college umpires would not do that. Like this is like the best of the best when you're hitting postseason with the umpire crews that you get. But sometimes, you know, like a nice, like being respectful and having a nice conversation will take you such a long way, where they'll give you a little bit more information of where the pitch missed. So the pitch could be thrown and I know that it's clearly outside. And I'll be like, was the height okay though? Because it's like, where do you want it exactly? Like, did you like that height or do you want it lower? Did you like it being that far inside or do you need it more on the plate? So there's always something that you can get back from it. And like, that's one of my favorite things because then that helps me figure out how much and how I need to move the pitch the next time that we throw that same pitch. Then you have the conversation with your coaching staff. So Coach Ash and Zach, this past year, you're able to have like one-way communication devices. So I had an earpiece in every game. And Coach Ash had
one way is them talking to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Coach Ash had the microphone and I had the earpiece. So she would talk to me. And then Jody Davidson, who was my catching coach, who focused on catching with me from Charlotte and to USC, he also had a microphone. So both of them would talk to me, not at the same time. And they definitely knew when to and when not to talk to me if I was like doing something. But they were both able to speak to me through the earpiece. And Coach Ash, more often it was used by her to see where batters were standing in the box. So if you ever watched in the game and I'm making all these crazy hand signals beside me, I'm actually telling the coaches where the batters are in the box. We watch film to pay attention to it, but a lot of times where a batter is standing in the box gives away what their plan is and like what the other team's plan is against the pitchers and like what pitch they're trying to attack. So a lot of teams would be like really on the plate against Jory because Jory threw a lot on her glove side, so the outer half for a righty. And I mean, that gives it away that that's what they're trying to hit. So then I would let them know that, and then we're able to go against their plan and then catch them off guard. So that's constant communication of where they're at in the box, and then Coach Ash would ask me to confirm, or she would tell me anything to tell the pitchers if I would call timeout, or if they needed me to call a timeout, they would tell me where the pitch missed or where the pitch was. It's constant communication, both if the ball was hit or if the umpire missed the call. Then you have your defense. You talk to the defense the entire time of making sure that your corners are with you for bunts, and you make sure who's covering the bag. And then I also had to know what defenses the team, like the infield, was in to know, like, is Ari going to be able to crash for a bunt or not, or is she back? Is it Carly covering second, or was it Shay covering second? So it's kind of a lot more behind the scenes than what you would typically think. In scouting, you would figure out the other teams of how fast their runners are, how often do they bunt, how often do they steal, are they fast runners, are they slow runners? Like, the amount of stuff that goes into it is actually, like, it's crazy how in-depth it all is. But I could nerd out about it the entire time. I mean, you just gave me, 5-10 minutes just to sit there and yap about it. I could literally take the entire rest of the time slot just to talk about the the small details of catching that I just like. I absolutely love.
You sure you don't want to coach? Are you
That
sure?
sounds pretty good to me.
Lexi.
Well, that's what. So that with being a graduate assistant the next year, and I've had talks with this with my family. That, I mean, I'm going to be working with the catchers. That's going to be like my main priority, and that's what Coach Ash and the coaches have told me when I met with them after season had ended, of just preparing for next year. That, like, that's going to be my main focus is the freshman that's coming in, who's a catcher, and any transfers that they get who are catchers, and being able to just pour everything that I know into them. And basically, Coach Ash said it to me. She's like, "You're going to teach them everything that you know, and like, I'm just going to try and help mold and shape them." So who knows? Maybe if that goes really good and something can come out of it, that's great. But we'll just play it by ear and kind of let God take me along the way.
We'll come back and wrap things up with Lexi Winters of Gamecock Softball as the Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating rolls along on your Thursday on the Game. All right, welcome back in. Garney Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling, Heating, and Plumbing. Tyler Head, Wes Mitchell wrapping things up with Lexi Winters of Gamecock Softball here on your Thursday on the game. We don't have any hits yet in terms of your apartment offer from earlier on in the show, but I do actually have a message on the Firehouse Subs text line. It says, this is from Coach Trowbridge from White Knoll. I've enjoyed following your career. So proud of you, and best of luck in your future.
Oh my gosh, that was one of my teachers. That's awesome. Wow. No, and even, I mean, that just makes me think about like some of the moments that when you would ask, like, have I realized that like this is what I've like done, like that was the end of my career was at my dream school. And I think about it with a lot of the people from White Knoll and middle school and even at Carolina Springs Elementary School, and we did pen pals both last year and this year, where we have a student from Carolina Springs Elementary, because that's where MC Probus, who is kind of like our community outreach partner, like she helps us with community service opportunities and ideas, and she had a previous connection with Carolina Springs Elementary, so we were able to do the pen pal program through them. And I mean, I went to school there from kindergarten to 4th grade. So, I mean, seeing some of those teachers and like old teachers coming to our games, they're like, yeah, we have a plaque of you up in the middle school. I was like, why do you have a plaque of me up in the middle school? And they're like, because of how many people like know who you are. And it still blows my mind that that's even a thing. But you go out in public and somebody may know me sometimes, and I'm like, this isn't real. Like, I'm just Lexi. Like, what's going on? But, gosh, that's so cool.
Pretty cool. Still, if you're out there, if you missed it earlier, we've got a great apartment that Lexi here needs to sublease. You would help her out a great deal. But I was curious, there's one other thing I wanted to make sure I asked you before you left. So I feel like the game of softball has grown quite a bit in terms of the attention, the TV coverage, probably since when you first started getting into it. Especially, let's go back to last year, regional, super regional. That stadium was pretty packed. It was loud. It was exciting. Do you get nervous at all? Like, when you're in the moment, when you're on the field, do you feel those nerves, or are you so are you so dialed in on all those things we just talked about in the last segment that the nerves kind of just, you don't think about them, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, I think early on in my career, when I was a freshman at Charlotte, I mean, it was much heavier than what it was, say, this past year or even last year. But through the years and like the experience that you gain, I mean, it makes it easier when you start to have those moments. Like, we were kind of just talking off air about the last game at UCLA, and when we were really, like, we were down by a lot and we're going into the last half inning, and as much as like, in your heart and you feel that like this is the end, I mean, I can't think that, especially being behind the plate with the pitcher in front of me and the whole defense is looking to me. If they see me in tears, like, what is that going to do for them? And I mean, yes, I have the C on my chest, but even if I didn't, that's the exact same thing, just as a teammate and then as a position player, as a catcher. But we were just talking about how you'd kind of have to just focus more on the little details and the tiny things, where you had said that you saw me continuing to do all of those things that I just nerded out on to the coaches and to the pitchers throughout the entire rest of that defensive inning. And so we're getting to offense, and like, you can't let that affect you. So it's still like, stick with the game plan, stick with the routine and the system that you've been doing, so that your emotions don't get the best of you, basically. But like last year, I mean, my first ever game on Beckham Field, I mean, that my heart was racing that game, and I didn't expect that to happen. I thought I was prepared, but I remember when we were playing Virginia last year, like, my heart was pounding the entire game, and I like couldn't calm myself down at all on defense. So then I came up with a process of what I do before each pitch when I'm catching to kind of like reset me every single time. So I have the quote, "Be still," on my glove. And yes, that helps me like think about like not moving that much, because for catching you can't do it, but it's more for the Bible verse that it's from, which is, "Be still and know that I am God," the Psalm 46:10. And so like, I would look at that every single time and like take a breath before every single pitch. And so that kind of makes me not be nervous, because forced myself into that routine every single time, that then when my emotions were high and the pressure was getting to me, like I could go back to that every single time and it would help.
As we got about the last 60 seconds here, as you sum up your entire playing career, not just here at South Carolina, is there one like defining moment that stands out to you as your like overall favorite?
I don't know. I think all of it. I mean, one of my favorite memories though is definitely from just this past year with the senior day. After the game, all of our friends and family got to go onto the field and we watched our videos. They were supposed to play while we were walking out across the field for getting our plaques, but afterward we all got to sit out, and as we're like sitting on the field and I get to watch this video, I'm in tears, like listening to myself, even though I know what I said. But the entire time, I mean, my whole career, I'm just really grateful, and I hope that I showed joy on the field and gave little girls the same dreams that I had. And to show people that you can accomplish your dreams and you can live them out as long as you just do what you're supposed to. Be kind to people, work hard, and things will fall into place for you. And if you want my apartment, let me know.
Well, we certainly enjoyed watching you here at South Carolina. Sounds like you've got a really good idea of what you want your future to be, and we certainly wish you the best of luck, and thanks for hanging out with us today.
Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it.
She is Lexi Winters of Gamecock Softball. That'll do it for the Gamecocks, or the Garnet Trust Hour, presented by Krantz Cooling, Heating, and Plumbing on your Thursday on the Game.
Somebody called about this apartment.
For real.